Hello, this is Dr. Mike McKinney. I'm president of Promise Broadcasting Network, and we're very glad to welcome you today to our telecast and our new program called Unsung Heroes. And each time when we have these type of telecasts, we like to bring someone in of whom we highly respect and regard, and someone I know that you're going to appreciate when you hear the wonderful story, how they've served our nation and served our world through the different professions. Today, we have an unsung hero sitting in the studio by the name of Dr. and General Mohler. Dr. Mohler, it's a delight and pleasure to welcome you today on the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
I've been looking forward to a long time, Adele and I, to have you on the program. And to me, you are definitely an unsung hero. And we'd like to hear a little bit about your background. And I know you're a medical doctor, but we'd like to, and you served in the armed forces, but we'd like to hear you tell it to our viewing audience today, how you got started, how the medical profession came about as a young man, and you're still a young man, you know. But how did all this get started, Doctor?
That's an interesting approach to it. Yeah, when I was a Boy Scout, going back to around 12 years old, and I just got enamored with first aid and the fact that people could be helped with such things. And that grew until when I finished high school, 1950, in Fremont High School. Anybody who knows South Central LA.
Yes.
I graduated a year early, and I went to George Pepperdine, and we got accepted into their pre-medical program.
Oh.
And so I felt good about things, going right into a pre-medical program right out of high school, and it was my mother insisted I go to a religious college, and there weren't many choices in pre-med, and George Pepperdine was one of them, and he was close by, the school was close by.
Sure.
And then the Korean War started while I was there, and I looked at the war, and I looked at my brothers that were all taken into World War II, and I looked at my friends, and I thought, well, there's going to be a draft, always a draft.
Yes.
And I think I'd rather join and have some control over what I'm going to do rather than let them draft me. Mm-hmm. So I'd much rather be, when I get into the hospital corps, at least there I'll have warm food and clean beds to sleep in.
That's right.
So thought I. And they didn't tell me about the Marine Corps yet. And then I went into the Naval Hospital, San Diego, and went through that course, and graduated with honors. And they had a choice of any of the naval hospitals to do my continuing, so you might say, internship.
Yes.
And so I was going to go to Bethesda, but one of my friends who was there with me said the magic word, girls. And he said he knew all these girls up in San Francisco Bay Area. That's where he was from. And that I should go with him up there. Well, I did. Went to Mare Island Naval Hospital. And they had great training, and we were getting fresh casualties. And I was working on the surgical ward, and got to do a lot of things, got to see a lot of things that just under usual circumstances it doesn't happen. So I got a big boost in my education there, and no girls. He didn't show up with any girls.
But a lot of hard work, right?
Yeah. So, but San Francisco was an interesting place.
Yeah.
But then I went from there to Japan, was put on a surgical team 19. A surgical team was 2 surgeons, an anesthesiologist, and the supporting corpsman who can go and fill a hole somewhere that there's a need. First we went to Japan, in a naval hospital in Japan, and I started doing, working as a surgical tech.
I see.
And learned a lot about surgery. and they seemed to like me, I guess.
I'm sure they did.
Some of the surgeons would ask for me to assist them, and they went from there. The surgical team was sent to a retraining program in southern Japan for the Marines.
Oh.
All of a sudden, I'm wearing a Marine uniform.
Ah.
I thought, well, I'm proud of these guys, and I'm proud of this. And,
Sure.
And they don't always sleep in warm places.
I see.
And they don't always get the best food. And it was a real challenge. So after joining that unit and as a temporary duty with the Marine Corps in turn sent me to a Army training program for nuclear, biological, chemical warfare, which was the hot issues of the day.
Yes.
And so I got NBC training.
A little bit later, I'd like to pursue that part about the chemical a little bit later in the story here today. Sure.
But so worked with that, and that worked very well for me, and I got a lot of interesting training at the Camp Zama. Camp Zama, incidentally, was the last black division that was being assimilated into the regular Army. It was the last fully segregated unit.
At that time, the Army was, the services were segregated at that time.
Highly segregated. And coming from Southern California, it completely baffled me. I didn't understand that at all. Mm-hmm. I didn't know why they were separated, but and so integration seemed like, well, it's such a natural thing. Why not?
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't disturbed by it, but I was then learned from some of my Southern buddies how they felt about it. And I thought, that's strange. Mm-hmm. But we got past that and did our training, and then from there I went back to the Marine unit in southern Japan, and from there we were sent to Korea. And Surgical Team 19 became part of the Naval Hospital, which was a deployable, you call it a MASH unit in the Army, but
sure.
The Navy didn't have MASH units. It was all in a tent.
So they sent you right to Korea right after that?
Korea, yeah. And they flew us over there, which got us there quickly. And we got to the MASH unit, or the hospital about 20 miles from the front lines. You could hear the gunfire at night. And,
oh, my.
And we had some infiltrators. And I was not a good soldier in the sense I carried a weapon I wanted to shoot. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to shoot. I wanted to take care of people.
Right.
Hurting people was not my thing.
Well, you're a doctor. You're a healer.
But you had to, as the argument was given to me, it says, you've got to protect your patient.
Well, that's true.
Whether or not you want to be protected, that's up to you, but you have to protect your patient.
Yes.
And so I learned a lot about that. And, for example, as one of the training issues, why do you put a guard on an enemy soldier in an advanced hospital like this? Why do you put a guard on him, on the soldier? They have a right to get medical training, not training, but care. Mm-hmm. Under the Geneva Convention, an enemy soldier can be captured, or surrendered, or whatever. And if he needs medical care, we have to give it to him. Mm-hmm. And we bring him into our hospital, and they'll share a room, a space, with our other soldiers who have been wounded.
Regardless, right?
Regardless. And these guys are looking around and say, just a few minutes ago, that guy was up there, and I was trying to shoot him. Now he's here. What's going on? Mm. And so you put a guard on him, and I asked the guard the question, because I don't know that they knew. I said, why are you guarding him? I thought, well, that's to protect our soldiers from him. And no, it was the other way around, to protect him from our soldiers.
Oh,
so
because of the resentment and things that
if anybody should rise up and injure this guy, then the Geneva Convention was such that we'd have to tell the enemy, and then our prisoners would be injured.
They'll pay the price.
So we're protecting ourselves, our own things like that. A way of thinking. I had completely revision of my compassion,
and your thinking,
really. Thinking, yeah. And so, anyway, I got to work on a lot of people. I was very...
Were there a lot of casualties coming in at that time?
Yeah, there were. And it was not only Marine, but Army, and a lot of forces, foreign forces. We had Ethiopians, we had Greek, we had anybody who was in the United Nations forces came through our hospital, which gave us a real challenge because I don't speak Ethiopian.
No, a little different, huh?
And there they are with...
You have all these patients of different cultures and languages. That must have been really something.
So, but then you do surgery. The first surgery I was involved with in Korea, we got there and they'd just had infiltrators around the camp. So there was a lot of shooting and screaming and people yelling, shoot, shoot. And look outside the fence line and there were people in a uniform I didn't recognize running by.
Wow.
And, but what I didn't know then, you should know now, is that medical people cannot shoot from the inside the hospital across the fence line.
Really?
Yeah, because you're inviting retaliatory fire.
Oh, I see.
You don't want people shooting into the hospital.
No, you sure don't. No, don't want that.
And so, and most of us are, we're going to protect ourselves. That's our first instinct. But learning how to restrain yourself from those things.
That must have been difficult to restrain. Did you feel a lot of fear during those times, Doctor?
There wasn't a day in Korea I wasn't afraid. If you're not afraid, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
Nonetheless, I do the work.
Yeah.
I did the work not only well, but I did it very well. But still, no sense. Nobody's going to tell me that they weren't scared.
Right.
You got all these guys with guns out there ready to hurt you.
Sure.
Of course you're scared, but I always kept 3 Marines between me and the enemy.
Well, that's a good idea. And you saved a lot of people too, Doctor. I believe through your skills and your giftings, a lot of people's lives must have been saved.
We had very good success at that, and we did a lot of original surgery. It was a transition period between World War II and modern hospital warfare. And so we, I don't know what else to say about it.
Yes.
We finished.
How long were you in Korea during that wartime?
I spent the whole winter there. You have to understand, I'm from Southern California. I never saw snow fall from the sky until I was 18 years old.
And it's pretty cold over there in Korea, too.
Oh, I can't believe it. I mean, it was so cold, you could feel the air move around your face like water. It was so thick.
Was there a lot of frostbite casualties during that?
A lot of them. We took off, took off toes and noses, and we did a lot of frostbite.
A lot of that. Had to do some reconstructive things.
And our troops were sent over there and were poorly prepared for the whole situation on the Chosin Reservoir. Marines were up at in the Chosin.
Yes.
And they didn't have the proper equipment and a lot of frostbite.
Yes.
And, it was really an awful experience for them, and we had to deal with that.
Oh, my.
And but all this is happening to an 18, 19-year-old kid who wanted to have medical training, and I was getting A first. You could buy that training.
Right.
Here
of the most extreme situations, too.
Yeah, and you were trying to take care of people.
Right.
And you've got burns, you're looking at
everything.
Not only gunshot wounds, but grenade injuries and in unusual places. Well, it's amazing how many body parts get injured when people start. And I'm not going to describe all those.
It must have been, even as a doctor, and of course you see a lot of things. It's still, how did you keep yourself from affecting or showing any emotion, or did you kind of try to mask some of that?
Well, that's exactly what you do. You grow a very thick skin, and you try to separate yourself from your own personal emotions.
Yeah. And otherwise, it could affect the patient. Right?
Absolutely. You have to take care of the patient, and as difficult as that is, to pretend like it's not happening and just do it because you're not treating a cold, you're treating frostbite. You have to accept.
Right.
And you have to do it. When you grow a thick skin, and you try not to get emotionally involved with it. You'd like to.
I'm sure.
I had one patient that I remember today vividly, a lieutenant who took a bullet in the chest. And he was in our hospital, and we had a sucking chest wound, and we were trying to get the air out of him, and with primitive means, and trying to keep him stable enough to send him back to the hospital.
Sure.
We were up, remember, we're in a tent in a dirt ground.
Like MASH, like a TV show. Yeah.
So we worked very hard on this guy. Spent a lot of personal time with him. And I got to know him really well. He'd recently been married, and he would just
a young man.
Started in college. So we shared a lot of because he was in college, I was in college, and so we got to. But one day he died.
Oh.
We couldn't save him, and
you tried your very best. I know.
I never could understand why that happened. Why did he die? Why did he have to die?
Yeah.
Anyway, it just.
That was one of the times you did get a little emotional.
Oh yeah, you have to. It just.
Yeah.
You can't grow my skin any thicker than that. It just. So there were. Anyway, we went back eventually to Japan.
I was going to ask. Yes, after that assignment, then the whole unit pulled back and went to Japan.
We were replaced by another surgical team, and we went back to Japan, where I again started working in the operating room, and then from there I was sent not as a surgical team member, but as a surgical tech to a hospital ship, Haven.
Oh.
And so we were in Incheon Harbor and collecting casualties from Incheon Harbor.
Yes.
And looking at the incredible tides that occurred, and imagining how our military soldiers had to deal with those tides and the barriers, and it
very
was
difficult.
MacArthur was a very smart man.
Oh yes.
Because he came in there, and the North Koreans had no idea he'd really have come into. They thought he was going to come in from the other side of Korea because it's closest to Japan.
Yes.
But he came in there, and so and the tides were so poor, and not in our favor. So the North Koreans and the Chinese didn't think we could even go in. Well,
Right.
MacArthur did, and it was fortunate because our troops were really visibly exposed when they landed. There was a 30-foot barrier. The tides in Incheon Harbor are 30 feet, and when the tides go out, then there's this barrier.
Imagine that.
And they had to go up on a ladder.
To go up on that.
And you can imagine people popping up behind a barrier. Somebody with a rifle, machine gun, could have been creating havoc.
Actually, he did the impossible, didn't he?
Yeah, and
really did.
And we went in. We went across Korea and cut the NVA and the Chinese in half, so that they had to retreat back up. That's when we chased them up into Chosin Reservoir.
Oh, yes. And
And,
won a decisive battle, too.
Yeah, but it was
Hard.
chasing them into Chosin Reservoir it was a difficult thing for us because our troops weren't properly equipped for that. It is incredibly cold.
Yeah.
And even we had moved up into North Korea a little bit to stay close to the troops.
Right.
And but getting into Chosin Reservoir, it was so cold, and our troops were so ill clothed. I mean, they didn't have the right boots. They didn't have the right, and so we were right up there on the border. And then those Marines, they call themselves the chosen few, and
that was true, wasn't it?
It really was.
They really were great. I met one of them that survived. He was hit 3 times, and he lived. And he became a chaplain later. I knew him very well.
Yeah, and coming back down the road, they had enemy on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a really difficult time. Those guys,
yes.
I just have so much
You
love
saw
for those
you
guys.
saw a lot, didn't you, Doctor?
Yeah, I mean, you got to realize this is an 18, 19-year-old kid who grew up in Southern California.
Imagine, yeah.
It just never,
That you would experience all those things. Imagine.
And all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so.
But you've saved a lot of lives, and you, thank God you were there. You know, I'm glad you were there.
Well, I wasn't alone, but there were
of
all
course not.
together.
There were many wonderful people. I was going to ask too. I imagine that hospital ship must have been very well equipped, though, right?
The hospital ship was.
Yeah.
The Haven. Well, I was on the Constellation, and then that eventually rotated back to Japan, and I then was transferred on to the Haven. And
Right.
now the Haven, same hospital ship, but it didn't have the same orders. I thought we were going to go to Korea.
I see.
But we didn't, and I don't know why. But
Wow.
Then later I was put on an LST, and we were going through maneuvers on how to make a landing, how to convert an LST into a receiving hospital. So when the ship, we offloaded all of our stuff, and we changed it into a hospital.
You actually changed it, converted the whole thing.
Yeah. And
That's amazing.
You have all the stuff there. Running up and down the coast between Korea and Japan in a flat,
Imagine.
they just rock and roll.
But it worked. It actually worked.
And, all of our tanks, we offloaded them. They were themselves mobile, and water, they went off, and we didn't get right up to, when we finally got up right up to the shore.
Yes.
Our bow door was damaged.
I was going to, we have a few minutes left on the show today, Doctor. I was going to ask you, from that area, then how did you get in, besides being a medical doctor and an Army doctor, how did you get into the chemical warfare, the chemical part? How did that happen?
Well, that goes back to when I was with the Marines, and they sent me to the NBC school. And so when I finished this part of it and came back to Japan, then they didn't do much more with the NBC. Never heard much about it. I was put on a ship called the Breckenridge, which was a troop transport, and the war was cooling off, and we were bringing troops home. But all of a sudden, the Breckenridge was taken into Formosa, and near the Chinese border.
Which is now Taiwan.
Which is now Taiwan, yeah. And the Chinese were shelling, and communists were shelling islands off the shore. And Eisenhower said that they should stop, or he will drop an atomic bomb on them.
Whoa.
Now, I had been trained, and all of a sudden a medical doctor came to me. He said, "You remember how to use your Geiger counter?" I said, "Well, I haven't seen one in a while, but yeah." He said, "Well, you better get ready. You better know how to use it."
Just in case this happened.
Well, they didn't know. I didn't know this was happening.
Was that MacArthur that was thinking about that?
Yeah, it was Eisenhower.
Oh, it was Eisenhower. Oh.
And he was the president. And But the Chinese, because we bombed Japan,
Yeah.
they believed we would clearly let the bomb loose on
Do
them.
it again, yeah.
So they backed off.
backed off.
And that's what saved Formosa.
Oh, yes.
But we were there to evacuate the embassy and whoever else there. It came out. And so I got to meet a lot of interesting people there.
I'm sure you did. Doctor, altogether, we just have a couple of minutes left. How many years have you served as a, not only military, but as a doctor in your profession? How many years have you served?
When I got out of the Navy, I did 3 years, 9 months, 22 more, and then I went to UCLA. And then following UCLA, I went to college, which is now UC Irvine Medical School.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And that was back in 56.
Oh,
58.
my, many years, yeah.
And then I went into a residency program
Yes.
in medicine, and then I went into a specialty research program in air pollution. It was my
Yes.
research, which fit me because I already had experience with toxic air. And
Well,
so forth.
Doctor, we're at the end of the show. We'll have to do this again sometime. And I want to thank you, Dr. John Mohler, General Mohler, for being our special guest on Unsung Heroes today. And certainly you are a hero in our estimation. We love and appreciate you, Adele and I, so much. And you've saved many lives, and you've served God in your way and as a healer, as a physician. And I think it's just marvelous. We're very happy that you've tuned in our way today to Promise Broadcasting Network and our special program today on Unsung Heroes with Dr. John Mohler. And we're honored to call him a friend and a brother, and we know that he has been a great help to many, many people and saved many, many lives during his marvelous, marvelous career. We appreciate all of you tuning in today, and we hope that you'll continue to tune in to Promise Broadcasting Network. And we're going to endeavor to do all these wonderful shows and bring on other guests that I'm sure you'll find very interesting and very helpful. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, Promise Broadcasting Network here in the beautiful city of Pasadena, and we'll see you next time.